Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host, Maqbool, with you at BTV World. And today's show, we will be taking a look at two very important stories. The first is in reference to what an unfortunate incident has occurred over some time. And this is important, especially in relation to the incident of May 9th that has been gripping the country. And the issue with regards to targeting state institutions, particularly the military establishment, is something which is quite unfortunate and has been termed as a black chapter in the history of Pakistan. And in continuation of this particular campaign, it seems that another one has taken hold, this time on the social media platform, which has been condemned by the Prime Minister of Pakistan as well, speaking about how this is something which poses a huge threat to the country and is part of the sinister and evil designs of a certain political party and its chairman. It's important as well when we take a look at the current situation as to what sort of impact it creates within the society. There have been posts coming in on social media claiming that there seems to be some sort of assassination attempt on the Chief of Army Staff, or that one will occur. And this is important in terms of the sanctity of the state institution. That again was something that was disrespected on the May of 9th, and martyrs were also targeted as part of that campaign. And now it seems that even the Chief of Army Staff is also the target of such campaigns. This has been thwarted, of course, by the Prime Minister and the top leadership. He has also asked for legal action to be taken and full investigation to be carried forward. And of course, speaking with reference to the political elements involved behind this, he also said that the issue of such designs is that proxies are being used to put forward the sinister designs and incentives of a certain political party in power, who seem to carry forward whatever it is that they had thought of back on May 9th as well. And this is important when we take a look at the current situation, what this means in terms of the sanctity of the institutions and what sort of legal action can now be taken further on as well, while of course we know that investigation regarding May 9th is still continuing. So we'll take a look at all of this and what this means and how exactly will a campaign on social media be curbed and how will we get to the depth of the situation. Our second segment is going to take a look at something which moves Pakistan further towards a positive direction with regards to its economic crisis and situation. Of course, the SIFC has been established to bring in investment in the country. And one of the most important sectors that were identified previously also included agriculture. And this is something that the Chief of Army Staff has reiterated once again in the national seminar that was held on agriculture and food security today at the Islamabad Convention Center. And especially in terms of the way we want to take this particular sector forward, this seminar talked about a very important Green Pakistan initiative, which is going to focus, of course, on dividends to local farmers and bringing in more public-private partnership, modernizing technology, and of course enhancing the agriculture sector in any way that is possible. The Prime Minister has also spoken about the readiness of the Gulf countries to invest in Pakistan, saying that about $30 to $50 billion investment is expected in the next 4 to 5 years, and this is all because of the vision of the Chief of Army Staff. And it's important how exactly this is going to be then taken forward and what sort of measures need to be taken given the current economic challenges that the country faces, that Pakistan will have to endure to make sure that the agriculture sector is not something that come in any harm's way, especially given the fact that climate-induced disasters is something that Pakistan is prone to, and so we'll have to keep an eye out for. So we'll take a look at this particular initiative and what this means and the challenges involved within this particular issue. For this and more, as always, in the studios, I've been joined by Senior Analyst Farrukh Pitafi. We've been joined online for our first segment by Rana Maqbool Ahmad, Senator PML-N. Thank you very much, Rana Saab, for being a part of the discussion. And I'll start with you. Of course, we've been dealing with a campaign that has been going on against state institutions, even the military establishment, for quite some time now, and something that happens without any sort of evidence. And of course, it has an impact on the way that it's damaging the institutions or how they want to create some sort of public perception. But I want to understand that particularly when we talk about claims of assassination attempts on the Chief of Army Staff or one that may occur, what exactly do you think that this particularly entails, or what sort of objective does it even fulfill? What kind of chaos is being targeted or is being thought of when somebody goes ahead with this campaign?
Thank you so much. Yes, it's a very mischievous move, satanic move by all. It is just to unlove the strongest institution in the country. And I don't think it's only the brainchild of the mischief maker who has been plotting to raise price on 9th of May, there are other elements as well as our assessment is concerned. So there was a correspondent, old and hackneyed type of a person who writes in the paper there. He was also one of the conspirators to create secrecy in Pakistan. Once they think of, try, and conspire to have a plan to attack on the strongest person in the country, who is responsible for country's security, it means that they want an upheaval in the system to an extent that it may
Right.
harm the country.
Rana Sahab, unfortunately, there seems to be some sort of technical issue and we're unable to understand you. So we'll try and fix that and I'll come back to you again with this particular question. But Farrukh, the consideration, of course, at the moment is when we talk about what the Prime Minister has also stressed upon, is, of course, that this is something that is part of a much larger sinister design, or there seems to be certain motivation behind it, which is to harm the country. And it's important, especially when we take a look at this in continuation with May 9th, because the two are being linked at the moment. What do you think will be the way forward in terms of the legal action that the Prime Minister keeps on stressing on? There is one that's already in place regarding May 9th, but what about a social media campaign?
Right, Sana. Unfortunately, because this matter also involves people from my field, I wanted to actually dwell upon the immorality of whatever is being done. Remember that during previous government, there were people who were actually benefiting from the previous government's, influence. Because of that, they actually started their businesses, became rich, media men, right? And then they got the every kind of, encouragement from state institutions. And then, of course, at that time, because everything was like hunky-dory, everything was on the same page, they were the pampered kids. And then there's a journalist, a senior journalist, who actually ends up being the editor of various Pakistani newspapers, despite being in the US all the time, right? And he is also known for actually breaking the news regarding Malik Riaz being angry with Iftikhar Chaudhry. So one would say that he essentially actually falls in that category of journalists who actually work with similar kind of characters. And recently, one of such a strange journalist and then this gentleman, the editor one, they actually met. They did some podcast on internet. After that, they have actually, one of them actually started insinuating that something might happen to the army chief, right? Or some kind of provocation or some kind of implication egging on, so to speak. And unfortunately, this is because these people are now, they feel that they are snubbed because their favorite political order, the fascist worldview is not going to prevail in the country. So they are taking it out on anybody who is actually seen to be power center. Similar kind of campaign was launched against the former army chief, not only when he was the army chief, but after he left. He was in Turkey recently, and then an internet malicious campaign started that his wife was abducted or something of that sort. It was proven to be incorrect. So all this continues, and this continues especially because these people are sitting in foreign lands and they think that Pakistani law cannot harm them. Now, the first thing regarding the lands where they're sitting, especially the US, is that if there is something regarding libel, if there is anything defamatory, if there is something that actually tries to, badly influence a country, those people can be taken to court even there. And here in this country, if we are actually pursuing the matter, these countries usually have cooperation with Pakistan regarding such issues, so they can be pursued there as well. But look at the immorality of the whole situation. This country has made them. This country has actually given them everything. Who else will allow? Try actually editing an Indian paper while sitting abroad, you will know that cannot happen. Similarly, other countries as well. But here, these people were given all the respect, but just because they are not getting their way, because their, fairy godfathers are now actually in thick soup, that's where they keep on churning out hate, and they keep on asking or projecting their wishes onto the circumstances right now. Such fake news and similar kind of implications should be dealt with any legal method that is any legal method that is available to the state of Pakistan.
Right, but what exactly are they achieving with this? Just chaos?
Yeah, absolutely. Because till the time they are actually, you keep the pot boiling, you can get away with a lot of things. And then, of course, there is, this country is polarized, and it is believed that there are many people who follow that school of thought as well. So they actually, on one side, they are becoming the, faces of resistance. On the other side, of course, to do everything that is possible to destabilize the current system. After that, they hope that eventually their own favorites will come back. But similarly, this editor guy is essentially, very close to the, this Malik that I was talking about, this property tycoon. And because that man is also distressed right now, so these people don't believe in, any sparing anything in pursuit of their own value system, and they are ready to actually destroy the country if they want, if they have to.
Right. Rana Saab, can you hear me? Would you like to say a few words on this as well as you were continuing before, and I hope we can hear you this time around?
It's absolutely all right.
Yes,
You are surely very clearly audible.
Right. Rana Saab, so your take firstly on this particular campaign, and again, how will we be able to move forward, especially in terms of the connection with political elements that were involved in May 9th as well?
Yes, there is a direct linkage because the same mindset and it's identical planning. They actually wanted to embarrass the state of Pakistan, and once they are pinpointing, as far as the conspiracy is concerned, about the most powerful and the strong man who is responsible for the defense of the country. So they want that the system and the main people should be unnerved, and giving this the color of an international conspiracy, and also exposing themselves as mind of the collective mind of the cult. So this is the conspiracy, and this is the meanest act they have thought of, because they thought that once they assault on the important installations and sensitive installations, and especially the monuments of the martyrs, about which there is a general sensitivity in the people, they try to insult and hurt the masses who have a lot of love and regard for their martyrs who have sacrificed their life for the sake of country. So they wanted total commotion, disorder, and chaos. They could not create a chaos of that level because the people who were deputed and put for the job to destroy the sanctity of these structures and these places, they were not able to really shape the foundation of the country. So they miserably failed in their nefarious designs. So they were not satisfied with the result. For the sake that people reacted to it very strongly, and people they on the side of the armed forces and on the side of the martyrs and the soldiery of the country. So they thought, no, it is the main target should be the Chief of Army Staff, the Commander-in-Chief. So once the Commander-in-Chief is hit or is planned to hit, or at least he's unnerved and gets scared of their designs, it will serve their purpose. So this looks to be the intention. And you cannot rule out the possibility in the foreign hand as well. You know India and nexus of evil, India, Israel, Mossad, and RAW and other agencies, and the people who are supporting this man who is responsible with this total chaos, they are all linked with one another against the state of Pakistan, being an Islamic country, being a very important location of this country, and being an atomic power. So all these things put together, they have really planned to damage the integrity and the solidarity of the country. So
Right,
I
but
don't know
Rana
whether
Sahab, what I want to understand now is, of course, that there is very strict action being taken against the perpetrators of May 9th and the incidents and the targeting of state institutions, as you were mentioning. But it's also important to know how exactly will this particular issue then be taken. I understand that it's a huge thing that is being said on social media, but it's not the first time that social media has been used, especially even against the military establishment. Even the previous chief of army staff was targeted. So I want to understand exactly what sort of legal action is now going to be taken and how is that going to be linked with the incident of May 9th?
as far I may assure you, as far as my experience is concerned, about the science of taking action, why I are satisfied. I'm not satisfied at all as a student of the science of policing and
Okay.
law and order and going after the saboteurs. You very well know it's over 2 months it has happened, and nothing has happened except for rounding up a few people. The cases have not been prepared. The prosecution has not been streamlined. The evidence, which is so rampant and so overwhelming, as I already mentioned in the previous program, all facets of evidence are so strong and so invincible that is not being utilized for what they are waiting for. And I personally think that this the latest conspiracy, which is even more dangerous than the previous one, I pray that they are able to take action, but there is a methodology. For example, if there is some Pakistani involved from abroad, as there were listed names and names in the papers as well, there is a law, PPC, Section 2 and Section 3. If they are committing such a ghastly offense outside the country, they are culpable and their conduct is culpable and they can be prosecuted under Section 2 and Section 3 of PPC. Which ensures
So why hasn't
if
this been done so far?
If a Pakistani commits any crime abroad, anywhere, and any nook and corner of the country, it will be understood and taken as if he has taken offense in Pakistan. For example,
Right, but then Rana Sahab, we haven't really seen action being taken in line with what you're saying.
I'm very but this is what the problem is. Action is to be taken. We haven't seen really substantive action being taken against the saboteurs of May 9th. Did we take any action? No.
Right.
We should have been
Right,
tried and
I
tried
understand that.
with logical end.
Right.
So that
Let
is
me come
the
back to you
area
about
of,
this discussion, Rana Sahab, because I want to further explore what sort of action can possibly be taken with regards to people sitting outside of the country. And Farrukh, we've seen that previously as well happening in the past, and seems to be certain avenue that people take moving forward. And of course, as you were saying, there may be a way in which the government or the state can actually move forward, but is that way complicated, or because there seems to be a lot of delay involved? Is it that the law in itself has some complications, or is it because we're involved with different states and governments, or is it just that perhaps there is less will that has been there in the past?
Right, Sarah, and I think that this is a very interesting question because it reminded me of what I said when we were actually beginning with this crisis, right? And I'm talking about the crisis that resulted in the previous government's departure, and then this government, being in power, and even then we kept on seeing a pushback from various elements, and that actually, as you pointed out, culminated in May 9th. At that time, I had called it, people keep on calling it poly crisis, and I would very humbly say that it is a long crisis, right? In long crisis, what happens is that things are still born, they are stuck, because there are many considerations, many elements. For example, if you do one thing, there can be some consequences of that that might come back to haunt you, right? For example, on May 9th, people today say, why is it that the army did not actually stop those people who were attacking these buildings? And then they keep on saying that army has all the force and everything. But just imagine, had the army actually pushed back, what would have happened? If the attacking crowd or arsonists were armed, as we were told they were, they could have actually tried to actually create a scene, and eventually there would have been bodies. So how do you think people would have played with those bodies, especially the miscreants? They would have put the bodies on streets and started agitating for quite some time. So every action has to have consequences, and those consequences have to be actually taken into cognizance. Now, this question about these people, they are look, they are moving parts, right? These people are sitting in foreign lands. If you let me recall recall for your convenience those days when Asya Bibi was freed. At that time, what happened? One gentleman from a religious party, and at that time it was thought to be very powerful religious group, right? Faizabad, Rana and all. One gentleman actually went on record and said that somebody who believes in his point of view or religious point of view should attack the then army chief, who has actually recently retired. After that, we saw that within no time, after some initial chaos, the state actually took up the matter, and that person actually apologized on television and then went away, disappeared into oblivion, right? Similar kind of things will happen inside the country, but those who are sitting abroad, what will happen to them? Now, their own land, law of land, where they are, then Pakistan's law, then agreements between the two countries, and then creating content to convince the courts there that these people need to be treated in a certain way.
Yeah.
Now, the concern is that when you talk about our institutions, of course, there are many kind of people. When I can tell you about myself, not anybody else, right? Any child who has, or any person who has been a child of a tough marriage, when they hear people they care about on both sides actually start shouting and fighting, they get paralyzed, right? So I think that at some level, some elements in our state are in that state of, in that situation. Because if you actually just play the videos and audios that have been coming out, especially these people are known people. These people who are spreading these rumors or this propaganda are known Pakistani figures. So all you have to do is look up their videos, make a compilation and take it to an American court. There you can actually talk about defamation or some kind of conspiracy to topple a country or conspiracy to assassinate somebody.
Yeah.
These matters are taken seriously in those countries. So why is it that we haven't done it already? Because it is a long crisis, because the consequences are such that everybody does not want to rush the things and create a kind of cycle of complications that might actually end up toppling the whole system or harming the country.
Right. Farrukh, and I also want to understand, especially with reference to social media campaigns, for that, will we have to also deal with states, or can we also directly deal with the social media platforms, such as has been happening in India, for example, in a completely different way? But in terms of understanding that this is something coming on a social media platform, will that route then be different than what you were earlier saying?
Right. And that is a good question, Sana, because this argument was given when Pakistan's various laws regarding social media were being created. At that time, it was said that India actually, because it pushed back, those companies actually brought their servers to India, especially regarding Indian content, right? And because they are there, they can be controlled and they can be asked. But there is another thing, the issue of demand and how big Indian market is. That also plays a role here. But regarding Pakistan, Pakistan has been trying to actually argue with these companies. Facebook at times listens to what we say, But YouTube, Google, and Twitter for that matter, even though India created laws, but remember that India was using 3 or 4 elements together. One, India's own money, because India's investors are very rich and they can invest anywhere and disrupt. The second thing is their own market size. Because of market size, anybody who thinks that China and India, if they are out of their reach, then they are totally lost in the sea, on the sea. So that is why they try to actually woo India. The third one is India's own Hindutva extremism. Remember one time when COVID was, we were facing COVID, and there were certain statements that were given on Twitter regarding India. At that time, Twitter's offices were raided or attacked, right? And then, of course, there's the issue of having their own, huge army of trolls online who can actually effectively disrupt and attack anybody. So with that kind of situation, India actually arrived on the scene first, and they can manage whatever they can. What we can do is, although social media is protected because of Section 230 in America, but even then there are certain elements of whatever is being said that can be taken to their courts there. And if you want to do it, you need lawyers on the ground in Silicon Valley, and they can take these companies or such people to court, and these matters can be settled there.
All right. Rana Sahab, the issue, of course, remains again that there is a direction moving forward as to what needs to be done. But, of course, why is that not being done? So the condemnation is there. We have seen that the statement is coming in from the top chair of the country. However, we also, of course, need to see that the legal action is there. And I know that the Prime Minister has stressed upon that to actually happen. But what will it take to make sure that it does? And do you think that the government is going to pursue that? And also regarding what the PM said in terms of freedom of speech, of course, he has spoken about how this is a conspiracy and not part of a freedom of speech. But how will that aspect also be fought against, especially in terms of the international scenario that we're looking at?
Yeah, absolutely correct. All these areas of weaknesses and these are to be properly repaired and filled. Announcements about anything, about any action is something different, and taking action is something absolutely different. We have been making announcements about lots of things, but so far we have not succeeded in taking some substantive and tangible action against the country. This is what I've been emphasizing from day one. You might remember once we used to discuss the episode starting from 25th of May 2022, and I've been trying most and most of us, and you as well pointing out very intelligently, that why shouldn't the people who are responsible for creating disorder and creating this commotion has been taken to task? None were taken to task. So the person, he went habitual of violating law time and again. And now his this nature and instinct of violating law is absolutely unmanageable and uncontrollable. It's not being bridled. So action will be seen once it's taken. But there are methods to take action, as I've already mentioned. First of all, go and register cases against the Pakistani nationals who are creating this situation. Under the PPC, it's a very severe punishment. And if they don't return to the countries for prosecution, they will not, decidedly, then go for cancellation of their passports and the ID cards that are provided in the law. And if at all they have some property or belonging here, confiscate that property and belongings step by step and declare them as proclaimed offenders, as Mr. Pitafi has rightly pointed out. Then get across to the judicial forums in the foreign countries with sufficient material and argue your cases about the return and arrest of those people who are creating this type of situation in our country, which is detrimental to the existence of the country. Number two, full vigilance is required. As we always discuss this 99th May issue, where was our intelligence? Didn't we know what's going to happen? Where was the special branch? Where was the organization? Why did they didn't take cognizance because intelligence doesn't mean subsequent intelligence after the intelligence means advanced intelligence. So the intelligence agencies do have their fingers on the pulses of the culprit, but it couldn't happen. So these are all we must not be agitating about wider and intense analysis of our failings. If we continue doing the same thing as we have already done in the previous episode, I think this will be only tall talk, and it will also disappear with the passage of time, and I will dissipate the impact of all our announcements if we don't take concrete and substantive
All right, absolutely. Thank you very much, Rana Saab, for being a part of the discussion and joining us at the debate. Farrukh, you want to add something before we move on?
I think that it is important to remember that what has been going on for the past 1 year, especially right now we are talking about army chief, but regarding our intelligence, officials, their own families' pictures were also being circulated on internet with malicious intent, because so that they become targets, right? DGC's example is there because Imran Khan or the previous party's, supporters kept on actually bad-mouthing him, repeatedly, even do it right now. And now, amazingly, on one side, while they keep on doing it, the good-natured people have started also this speculation, because September is coming, and with that, term in office of DGI, that is DGISI, will also expire. So people have already started speculating whether there will be an extension or not. And one thing that was amazing to me was some people trying to actually put pressure by actually preempting the whole idea by saying that he will not accept this, right? With due respect, you have heard me giving you rave reviews of the current army chief and many other officers, but since whatever I have actually learned about the DGISI, I mean, amazing understanding of facts. The man is totally driven by patriotism. So I think that if it is not my job to say whether he should get an extension or not, or who should be appointed, but I think after Shambe's episode, after so many things that he has done, I think if he is asked to continue, he should, right? Okay. This is the humble submission. But the kind of propaganda that continues doesn't see what person has done what for this country. All you know is because it hurts, you keep on attacking, and you keep on attacking everybody. Like, for example, Colonel Sher Khan, his grave, what harm had he done to all these people, right? So these people continue in that way, and that is shameful.
Absolutely. We'll move on to our next segment, which takes a look at the very important Green Pakistan initiative, which is, of course, part of the SIFC as well, and the government's focus on improving the agriculture sector, among many others. For this, we've been joined by Mr. Adil Mansoor, who's an agri-economist. Thank you very much, Adil, for joining us and being a part of the discussion. And, of course, we're going to be taking a look at what this particular initiative means and how it will be taken forward. But I also want to first understand how much of there is a need for us to be able to prioritize this sector, and the ability and possibility of Pakistan actually enabling that to happen given the current economic challenges. Do you think that one initiative moving forward will be enough, and that this particular aspect sort of takes into consideration the entire approach that needs to be there to improve the agri sector in the country?
Assalamu alaikum. So thank you for the invitation. And with regard to the Green Pakistan initiative, I think while all forward-looking initiatives should be welcome, we should be careful before selling optimism too much. In the past 5 years alone, I think we have witnessed at least 2 to 3 different plans. One was the agriculture emergency plan of the Prime Minister. Then there was Prime Minister's agriculture transformation plan. It was announced 2 years ago. And not much has come forth from those initiatives or plans. So these plans do make a return every 2 or 3 years in Pakistan. So while once again, this is a positive initiative, we are yet to hear about more details as to what all does it entail. But the sector absolutely needs more initiative, and we need to welcome these positive actions. But we should first wait for the details to be forthcoming. In my view, it
Yes,
is
carry on.
wonderful that in the past 5 years, the underlying issues of agriculture sector have taken or been given some level of highlight in the mainstream media. But I still believe that when we discuss these problems, we are still mainly focusing on the symptoms rather than the underlying causes. And
Right,
maybe
I
there
understand.
is
I
still
understand
some
everything that
lack
you're saying, but
of
I
attention
also
over
want to
there.
focus and understand on what you said earlier regarding the previous plans that are there and unfortunately are not completed, or perhaps not, they don't see what their end goals were initially. But in terms of this particular plan, I want to also stress upon that aspect, whether or not that can actually be achieved now, given the fact that perhaps the economic situation is more challenging than ever in the country, and Pakistan is facing such a huge crisis, especially in terms of climate-induced disasters also, and then the kind of food security issues, and of course the economic challenges that that will eventually also bring in. So given the current scenario, the initiative sounds great, but I want to understand whether there is the capability of actually achieving that, considering that this is one of the most stressful times for the country.
So, in terms of whether this initiative was needed at this time, absolutely. Pakistan is facing historically highest food inflation currently in the last one fiscal year. So, absolutely, this initiative was much needed. However, in terms of capacity, we should not really be very sure whether uh, much can be achieved by undertaking some transformation plan or a green initiative in a very short period. Because you have to understand that the underlying issue of the agriculture sector is not the absence of government interest, but in my view, it is the excessive presence of government's footprint in the sector already. Government's footprint in the sector spans already from every aspect of the input sides, whether it is setting the prices of inputs like fertilizer, or the wholesale mandis, or the retail prices, which are set by the district administration. So the reason why this market is broken currently is already because we already have too much government intervention in the sector. So what we need to see is this a government-led initiative, and should we be wary of that, or is this, as we have come to know, possibly a private sector-led initiative by Fauji Foundation's subsidiary, which is something welcome because agriculture has in the past lacked in investment by private sector, especially corporatized private sector. So in that aspect, this is a very welcome initiative. But again, what one needs to stress upon is that for any of these initiatives, whether it is in dairy, whether it's in livestock, whether it's in field crops or cereals or vegetables or fruits, horticulture, what one needs to stress upon is that for any of such initiatives to succeed, the most important aspect is creation and presence of agricultural markets, which Pakistan still lacks. The presence of agricultural markets allows both investors and farmers to have some sort of financial visibility over future price forecasting, over the marketing, over the investment needs, which allows access to finance, and because of these climate-induced disasters, also access to risk management instruments like insurance and crop insurance and etc. When you
Right.
don't have an agricultural market, you cannot have that investment flow in, that private sector investment flow into this. Yes, these initiatives can help, but they can only go so far until those market and structures are present. So what we need to insist upon, I think, is that this initiative or any such similar initiatives need to be clubbed with creation of agricultural markets.
Right, absolutely. I understand. Farrukh, the numbers that the Prime Minister mentioned seem to be encouraging in terms of 30 to $50 billion coming in from Gulf countries in the next 4 to 5 years. And this, of course, is the kind of investment that is much needed in the country. But exactly what sort of factors will this then will be relying upon, especially in terms of the current economic challenges, and also what Pakistan will then be able to also put value in and make sure that that actually does implement?
Right. I think that one big problem with our assessment of any initiative is that we actually either focus on two general issues, right? issues that are too generalized because we keep on talking about the past, or then we don't know how to actually harness an argument. So I was listening to our guest, right? And I was thinking that initially he actually complained about government's presence in the agricultural sector, and then of course he talked about the need to create markets, and who creates those markets. I think that implication was that it is the government that should be doing it, right? But what are the strong points that this country has? It has incredible, swaths of arable land which can be used to actually till and produce, get excellent agri produce. Of course, there is need for inputs, better methods, and discipline as well. The second thing is this country is blessed with huge friends, right? Right from China and the US to the Arab countries, and who are interested in investing in this country. The third thing is that this country has a very disciplined army, and army recently has experimented with agriculture, and that's why we now have the LIMS system, right? A land information and management system, which is GIS based system and which is cutting edge. It can actually focus on soil fertility. It can actually focus on the plants and how they can be actually cultivated in irrigation and other aspects. I totally agree that there should be markets. Remember that I come from agricultural background, and in our own region also, Aarti is actually killed because they are very influential and because there is no proper markets. But remember, when India tried to do similar kind of thing, Indian farmers came on the streets, and they paralyzed the country till the time those initiatives were not taken back. Now, at this moment, I think that all we need, remember the second, the fourth thing that is very important is supply and demand. Do we have supply of land which can be tilled, or people for that matter who can be engaged? Yes, we do. What don't we have? We didn't have demand from foreign buyers, right? And because of Ukraine and the super cycle, we have seen that there is huge demand in Arab markets and then African markets and various other parts of Europe as well. So all you have to do is actually plan ahead and start this initiative, because this is also part of SIFC, right? And because that is there, and we saw Army Chief also taking and participating and actually reminding everybody, it is very important to keep on looking on possibility of hope, right? So right now I think it is the iron is hot and Pakistan can do whatever it wants to. The only thing is we have to have faith in ourselves.
Right. Adil, there's another aspect, two other aspects, of course, that are part of this initiative also, which is important. One, of course, modernizing technology, and I want to understand whether or not that means that there will be emphasis on R&D within the country, or that will we be looking for technology coming in from outside of Pakistan. And secondly, the issue of making sure that the dividends of whatever sort of enhancement there is in the agri sector actually trickles down to the local farmers as well. How will that be ensured? Is there a mechanism for that moving forward?
So, as Farrukh pointed out, this initiative can succeed, and we should be hopeful about its success, because it comes under the umbrella of SFIC, right? So we hope to believe that there is focus on both the sides of civilian government regime and the army in making sure that this initiative succeeds. If this initiative is taking place where government is providing an enabling environment to a private sector investor, which in this case is Fauji Foundation subsidiary FONGRO, which as news suggests might be bringing in foreign investors into play as well, we have every hope, or we have every reason to believe that this should succeed, because when foreign investor comes in, so does a technological transfer and R&D with it. And once these practices succeed at even at an experimental level, under fawn grows or spices, eventually the effects will trickle down because successful practices are eventually replicated by small
All right.
scale farmers
Absolutely.
as
I
well.
understand that. Thank you very much, Adil Mansoor, for joining us and being a part of the discussion. Unfortunately, that's all that we have time for. Thank you, Farrukh, for being part of the debate as well. That's all that we have from the show. We'll see you tomorrow.